Hi, I'm Dennis Watts, and this is the third installment of Healthy Robinson's Walkie Talkie, and today we're going to spend some time on the Lumber River. We've got with us here a couple of kayaks that we're going to put in the water. We've got a canoe over here that we're going to have a couple of people paddling in. And make sure you've got a personal flotation device. They come in many sizes, many designs, many colors. These are the inexpensive kind that most people are probably familiar with, and then you got these ski jackets, and there are other kinds that are specifically made for kayaking. You can pay anywhere from, I don't know, 10 to hundreds of dollars for a personal flotation device. Just make sure you've got one anytime you're near the water, and make sure you wear it. A lot of people will throw it in the boat with them and think, if something happens I can grab it, and they won't necessarily wear it. But usually when you need a personal flotation device, you don't anticipate it. You're in the water and you don't realize it. And if you don't have it, if you're not wearing it, you're not in a situation where you can reach and grab it real quick. A lot of times it's floated off somewhere. And right now we're at Horses Bluff down Beulah Church Road east of Lumberton. We're going to actually put in upstream at the wildlife access on Highway 72 East at the High Hill Curve. At various times throughout its history, the Lumber River has been known as Drowning Creek, the Lumbee River, and most commonly the Lumber River. It starts somewhere above Wagram as the headwaters, and it flows a number of miles through Wagram in Scotland County, near Maxton and through Pembroke, and on through Lumberton in Robinson County, down to Princess Anne, where the state park headquarters is, and on to Boardman in Columbus County. From Princess Anne, it flows on down to Fair Bluff, and somewhere in South Carolina, it crosses the South Carolina line, and somewhere in South Carolina, it flows into the Little PD River, and the Little PD ultimately merges with the PD River, and they dump into the Winyah Bay in the Georgetown area of South Carolina, where it meets the Atlantic Ocean. The Lumber River is a dark blackwater river. It's what is known as a blackwater river, and the water is black because of the tannins from the various vegetation along the bank, and the water is considered very acidic. There are a lot of blackwater rivers in southeastern North Carolina. The Black River, the South River, Waccamaw River. The Black River is interesting in that it has cypress trees that are over 2,600 years old. That means that they were already over 500 years old at the time of Jesus. The Lumber River doesn't have any trees that old because of the logging industry. The reason, one of the names of the river for the river is the Lumber River, is because the lumber industry was so big here. Trees were cut and either floated down the river or hauled out by the railroad. Some places down near Boardman, you can actually still see the timber standing where the railroad trestle, old railroad trestle from probably 100 years ago, crossed the river. Timber industry is still a major industry in this area, but nowadays trees are cut and hauled out mostly by trucks over the highway. There are many efforts to save the river. Much of the adjoining property has been bought by the Lumber River Conservancy and the state and is now protected for future generations. The Lumber River State Park is still in private hands, and fortunately many of the owners recognize the value of the river and use it for hunting, fishing, and camping, and are consequently good stewards of both the river and the land that's surrounding it. There are many swamps that feed the Lumber River. Sometimes it seems like Robinson County is one big swamp with a few scattered high places. Those swamps can be a blessing or a curse depending on one's point of view. Hundreds of years ago and up until the early 1900s, traveling in, out, and within the county was difficult. The negatives of this are that it was difficult to get goods in and out of the county. The positive is, from the perspective of inhabitants of the area, that they were pretty much left alone because the land was not deemed that valuable. Probably one of the reasons that the indigenous people of this area were not forced to move during the era of the Indian Removal Act in the 1830s is because no one wanted the land. Of course, better roads and transportation during the 1900s opened the county up more to the rest of the world, and consequently, dependence on the river and railroads became less, especially dependence on the river. The good thing about that is that the river is relatively clean. It has not been contaminated as much with industrial runoff as rivers in other places. The lumber has a wild and scenic designation, which very few rivers have, and this designation also helps to protect the river. If you've never had a chance to get out on the Lumber River, I would highly encourage you to do so. There are a lot of places to access the river, many state wildlife access points, the state park up at Wagram, the state park at Princess Anne. These are also great places to access the river by boat. You can hike along the river at the state park at Princess Anne. There's camping sites at Princess Anne that are accessible. All of the stuff at Princess Anne is accessible by automobile. There are campsites along the river. There are primitive campsites along the river, various places that you cannot drive into. There are canoe campsites. You have to canoe or kayak, find an access point where you can put a canoe or kayak in and float down to these campsites, and then the next day you can float on down the river to the next takeout point. Park staff down at Lumber River State Park at Princess Anne can give you a lot more information about these various sites and many other activities that you might be interested in on the Lumber River. The Lumber River is it's really a kind of a hidden jewel in the county. There are a lot of folks that the only thing they know about the Lumber River is when they cross over it on a bridge and look out of the window of a car. To really explore and appreciate the beauty of the Lumber River, you've got to get down to the river. You got to get on the banks or on the water itself. Hiking those trails at Lumber River State Park at Princess Anne, or floating down by canoe or kayak, or just walking along the side of the river, you'll find to be a very serene, peaceful, serene activity. It's absolutely beautiful almost any time of year.